welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Wisconsin Weather Experts. It is Tuesday. It's sunny, but it is noticeably cooler compared to yesterday. It was fantastic.
And I told you earlier, I felt kind of crazy. I had my windows open. It felt great last night, but it got really chilly this morning.
It did, especially with the fact that the wind was still very strong. It was still 50 degrees this morning at around 5 o'clock, but then temperatures steadily dropped. Wind was still very strong, so then you're instantly dealing with a wind chill. It looks the same, just a little deceiving today.
And I think one of the things you've talked about too is while it's cool, it's going to be a short period of time that these cooler temperatures are here, right?
Yeah, we're going to continue to climb day by day. We're still talking a lake breeze, but we will gradually be climbing day by day. So something to look forward to. Now we have a big jam-packed show. Once again, we're going to talk a lot about more dust storms, the technical term for them. We're going to talk about the lunar eclipse. Meteorologist Rob Haswell has a great interview to share with you from Yerkes Observatory down south in Walworth County near the Lake Geneva area. But first, we're going to start by looking and referencing back to the brush fire in Brookfield back on Sunday. We actually have some drone footage now. This is from Sky Fox, and you can really see almost the burn scar from this across the Brookfield area. And look at that shot especially.
House is lucked out.
Right. That's a neighborhood. And that was one of the neighborhoods that did have to evacuate on Sunday with how excessive this brush fire was and how quickly it was moving. You can see it also got very close to that car dealership too. And there were a few cars that did have some damage from this brush fire. It's just always so amazing to see it from high up. It's the same with a tornado, really. You know, you can see the path when you have that high up footage. Now we're seeing that from this brush fire.
Well, we're very grateful, though, that some of those structures actually did not withstand any kind of damage. And put this into perspective. What we had was such a small scale to what California has had. And we really, really did luck out in this situation. But this just goes to show that we've been so dry. Our vegetation's dry. The drought conditions have a significant impact, even during the winter months. So, again, very grateful that we did not have any damage or any kind of injuries. However, that being said, we need more precipitation in the forecast.
We do, and we do not have any until Friday night. You know, we're talking a lot about these fluctuating temperatures, but the rest of the week, we're still going to be dry, still going to be sunny. And today's a windy day, but the wind should get a little bit better in the days ahead.
That's going to be good. That means if anything does ignite accidentally, lower winds, not going to spread and can be controlled if something were to at least happen.
Right, exactly. So. Moving on, this is something we deal with every so often here in southeast Wisconsin. We see these frontal boundaries. They quickly move down the Lake Michigan lakeshore, moving our winds out of the northeast, and it provides a pretty significant temperature drop. Not saying that's what's happening today, but it's still fascinating to learn about. Meteorologist Tom Walks has the latest on what a pneumonia front is, and that term was actually coined right here in the Great Lakes regions.
Well, if you've lived in Wisconsin for a long enough time, you've probably heard the term pneumonia front before. Yes, it's an actual term, but what does it mean? Well, often cold fronts will move from the northwest to the southeast across the state. But sometimes along Lake Michigan, we can get what we call a backdoor cold front, meaning it comes from the northeast and moves to the southwest, kind of an odd direction, right? Well, let me explain here. This often happens when the lake is much colder than the land, so that would be in the spring and early summer months, and you'll get the cold front racing across the lake for two reasons. Number one, the lake is colder, and number two, there's no friction on Lake Michigan, so that causes the front to move faster down the lake than, say, in inland locations. So that causes the front to speed up and come in from the northeast. So what that does is that quickly turns the wind direction around to the northeast in lakeshore communities from where this front comes through. Now, the term pneumonia front was actually coined by the Weather Bureau in Milwaukee, which is now the National Weather Service, and this was back in the 1960s. No, it has nothing to do with pneumonia, but it emphasizes the point that it's a sharp drop in temperature in a short amount of time. Now, the official definition is a 16-degree temperature drop or more in 1 hour or less. Typically, it's much less. In fact, we often see in the Milwaukee area in the spring and early summer, when these things come through, the temperature will drop. It could be 15 to 25 degrees in just a matter of 10 to 15 minutes. I mean, literally, you could be going out to lunch and it's 85 degrees and suddenly it drops into the low 60s in a matter of minutes. I mean, it is jarring when these temperatures drop quickly, and that's that cooler lake air that is quickly coming in. Why? Well, colder air is denser or heavier than warmer air. So again, that front surges down the lake. It's coming in from an odd direction, so to speak, from the northeast. So we call that a backdoor cold front, and it can rise to the level of a pneumonia front, so to speak, when it's 16 degrees or greater in terms of that temperature drop in 1 hour or less. So keep an eye on the weather forecast in the spring and summer if you live near the lake, because these can be some pretty big drops.
Fascinating stuff there. Because, you know, I think a lot of times during our newscasts, we talk about what's going to happen when that front moves through, but we don't really have the time to go into the science of how it even forms and how it's able to quickly move down from the north to the south. It's really cool.
And so getting that little educational experience, like Tom said, not as much friction over water as what we have on land, so that front, again, can move quicker. Something we did experience, though, was warm temperatures yesterday, a big drop heading into today, but not enough to meet that pneumonia front criteria. But it is something that we have occur here across the Great Lakes, especially as we head into certain times of the year when that water mass is cooler. Now, again, talking about that warmer air, though, it was very warm for this time of year. And we've been emphasizing that it was close to record-breaking temperatures, was it not?
Yes, it was. We were watching it so very closely yesterday afternoon, and we were only a degree shy, one degree shy of at least tying the record high from yesterday. So officially 67 degrees, our high temperature Monday. The record still 68, set back in the 1800s, quite a ways away from yesterday, right? Or from this year. Now, temperatures across the state were well above average and near records yesterday, even up to Rhinelander. I believe the record for Rhinelander yesterday was 62. So they were only a degree shy as well. Everybody was very close. In fact, we had somebody reach into the 70s, a little jealous, but our 60s were nice too. La Crosse hit a high temperature of 72, Madison 67, Green Bay 65. So again, all across really the upper plains in the central U.S., we were enjoying a spring-like day. Down south, a summer-like day. And it's a different story right now. A current look at our 24-hour temperature change. Most spots are 15 to even over 20 degrees colder than this time yesterday, and even more dramatic temperature drops off towards the west, where you're seeing those purple colors across Minnesota as well as the Dakotas. Even the Dakotas reached into the 60s yesterday, so really everybody enjoyed a very, very nice Monday. Always makes the Monday after the time change a little easier when you can get outside and enjoy some sunshine. Now, the drop in temperatures today, thanks to this cold front that is now off towards the east. It was a dry front. It did not bring us any precipitation. There is some, you can see almost to New England states right now on the northern edge of that frontal boundary. But here locally and across much of the Great Lakes region, we stayed dry. And we'll continue to stay dry from here thanks to another high pressure system that is now building in to the upper plains and eventually the Wisconsin area, state of Wisconsin, I should say. The most of the country is actually pretty quiet too. That storm system that brought severe weather down south yesterday that we talked to you during the show about, now out over the Atlantic. There's just some snow across portions of Montana as well as North Dakota and southern Canada. That's going to continue to track northward, so no impacts to Wisconsin. And then another storm system just now coming on shore into southern portions of California, going to bring in some really good beneficial rainfall, snow to higher elevations. I know yesterday we talked about some snow at higher elevations just outside of LA. Now, tomorrow we will see another storm system developing down south, and that's going to be the beginning of some potential severe weather in the coming days. You can already see from the Storm Prediction Center this convective outlook for Wednesday. So tomorrow, both a marginal and slight risk for portions of Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, as well as northern Louisiana. Also, I know it's early, but there will be yet another storm system developing that could bring more severe weather Friday into early Saturday morning. Look at this. This is the extended severe thunderstorm outlook heading into Saturday, and more so Friday night into Saturday. Even us here locally in southern Wisconsin will be watching a line of potential thunderstorms making their way on through late Friday night, and it's not out of the question to maybe see some stronger wind gusts out of that line of storms. So again, I know it's very early, a lot can change, but for the first time this season, we're breaking out Storm Prediction Center convective outlooks here. So we'll see in the next couple of days how that system evolves. Again, it hasn't even developed yet, but something we will be watching. And speaking of severe weather, so an update to the severe weather across Florida yesterday. Remember, we were talking about our sister station, Fox 35 in Orlando, during their morning broadcast yesterday. They were talking about that tornado that passed by their station. You saw the video footage, the debris flying from their own tower cam. The National Weather Service did survey that and ranked it an EF2 with max wind speeds of 120 miles per hour. Went from Longwood, Florida to Lake Mary, Florida, so just north of Orlando. And again, as you guys know, it did impact our sister station in Orlando. No injuries, no deaths, but a decent amount of damage. So our thoughts go out to everybody dealing with that around the Orlando area. Now temperatures, all that warmth for today sliding its way eastward as well as southward. So those spots across the Upper Plains and Great Lakes that were in the 60s yesterday, now looking at 40s for today. We still have a lot of back and forth temperatures going forward too. We may cool a little bit in the next couple of days, but then later in the week, some warmth returns. We drop a bit heading into the weekend, especially on Sunday, but still 40s. And then early next week, this time next week, more warmth will be with us. It's a very typical spring-like pattern for most spots across the Upper Plains. But hopefully everybody was able to get out and enjoy the weather yesterday. Take a look at this video from Summerfest grounds. They have that awesome park at the Summerfest grounds. I know my kids love it. It's all color coordinated. There's instruments. It's really cute. They opened a little bit early, which is excited. They closed during the winter months, so an absolute sign of spring, and I'm sure many took advantage of it. You can see hours of operation, Monday to Sunday.
Yeah, a lot of kids getting outside, and I think a lot of people were outside enjoying the fantastic weather. It's nice to know that even though we need the snow, and it is still considerably the winter months, we are having at least some of these nice warmer days around, and I'm sure, again, more people were out at the parks, not only at Northwest Mutual Community Park, but there we go, more kids are looking forward to the summer months ahead as well, and just being able to get outside.
Sunday, they were packed too, I'll tell you that. We could barely get on the slide.
Speaking of outside, take a look.
Beautiful live view in Milwaukee. Sun is shining. It's just a little cooler. We have plenty more coming up after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back, everybody, to Wisconsin Weather Experts here on Fox Local. Thank you for staying with us. We have an exciting lunar event taking place Thursday night into early Friday morning.
It's going to be really exciting to see. Something, again, we haven't seen for a handful of years. Yeah. So if you like astronomical events, well, Rob's got the scoop. He went to Yerkes observation area and was able to speak with someone about it coming up, and we're going to learn a lot more.
We are joined by Dr. Amanda Bauer down at the Yerkes Observatory to talk all things space today. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
We are called the Wisconsin Weather Experts. Of course, the name meteorology has the word meteor in it. We don't forecast those. That's kind of more your gig. But obviously, we love talking about the area outside of our atmosphere as well. And it has been a popular thing to talk about of late. A lot of big events this year in astronomy.
Yeah, the night sky has given us some gems early in 2025. Right now, if you go out in the evening, you can see a lot of planets. You probably heard about the planet parade.
Yes.
Well, they didn't just go away, so you can still go out. Right at sunset, you'll see a really bright Venus for most of the rest of the month. And then as the evening gets later, you'll see a bright Jupiter and Mars up in the sky.
There you go. And we're just a couple of days away here from the full moon. And that comes along with something else that's very special this year.
Well, this month's full moon gives us a total lunar eclipse over North America. So that's going to be quite exciting, especially if you are a person who likes to stay up quite late.
How late do we have to stay up?
This one, the full moon rises just after sunset on the 13th, so that's this Thursday. And the full moon starts to get covered by the shadow of the Earth just after midnight for us in the central zone. And so after midnight, you have about an hour where you start to see this red shadow going across the moon. And right around 1:30 or so is when you get the full total lunar eclipse. So that's what they call the blood moon. It looks this beautiful deep red, and it'll last a little while. And then the shadow moves to the other side of the moon for about another hour.
There you go. Of course, we know the moon isn't temporarily changing colors. What is happening?
So the moon happens to pass through the shadow of the sun shining on the Earth, and then the Earth's shadow goes off into space, which is always happening. We always have a shadow. Just during total lunar eclipses, the moon happens to move right across the shadow, and so we see that dark red color.
That's awesome. Just allows us to see what's always there.
That's right. And kind of reminds us we're just these huge floating spherical orbs in space that happen to align every now and then.
Right. And in some cases, we're not that huge compared to other things out there. We're kind of tiny sometimes as well. So looking a little farther into the long range here, I mean, are we getting all the exciting things out in the first 3 months of the year, or what's down the road for us?
Well, one thing I am keeping my eye on is a star that might potentially explode as a nova. This is called T Corona Borealis, and we were kind of thinking it was going to explode last fall. It was giving us some hints, changes of brightness, which indicate some activity, but it didn't actually explode yet. So we're keeping our eye out. There's amateur astronomers and people all over the world kind of looking for it. It's interesting because it is a double star system and they orbit around each other. It's a really dense white dwarf star and a big kind of puffy star at the end of its life.
So they do this weird little dance, right?
Yeah, they orbit around each other, and over time that puffy star loses some of its gas, and because it's got this dense massive star next to it, that sort of pools the gas. And so every now and then when it gets enough stuff on it, that little star does like a little explosion and gets rid of all that excess mass, and then the dance starts again. And it happens about every 80 years, according to the record of observation. So we are ready for it, and I'm pretty excited to turn our telescopes to it.
And there's been a lot of apprehension. I've been reading about this myself. There's been a lot of apprehension, a little bit of maybe not debate, but like competing theories on this too, right? As to
About
timing and intensity and stuff.
Yeah, you never can predict exactly how bright it's going to be or exactly the day it's going to explode. In astronomical terms, we can never get that accurate, except for, lunar eclipses. We can get it down precision to the second. So things closer to home we can measure, but farther away, we just sort of have to wait for the error of astronomy.
And that's half the fun, right? It's to debate, and to talk about timelines with each other and, kind of discuss, projections and forecasts in that sense, in an astronomical sense. Okay, so we've got that down the road. What about summer? Summer's such a great stargazing season because it's still warm at night. You can go out, lie in your backyard and just take in the, the stars and the planets. What should we be looking for as things warm up?
Well, I think that you should still be looking for some planets this time of the year. I know a lot of people like to look for the Big Dipper. That's one of my favorites. You can see the Big Dipper, and it points towards the North Star, Polaris, which is what all the stars rotate around. And if you have a keen eye, you can even see the Small Dipper. The end of the handle of the Little Dipper is that North Star, is Polaris. So that's one of my favorite things to kind of look for and gaze my eyes towards in the summer.
That's a good starter constellation too. Easy to pick out. You can kind of point it out to the kids. The kids get a kick out of that. My favorite happens to be Orion. I think that's pretty easy to spot in the winter sky.
Yeah, it's great. Right now, it's really beautiful. We actually just used our great refractor to look at the nebula, the Orion Nebula, which is just a little bit below where the 3 stars of Orion's belt are. So it's beautiful right now.
All exciting stuff. If someone wants to come down and visit you at Yerkes, when can they go?
They can come anytime. People can walk around our beautiful grounds. And then right now for March, April, and into May, we've got some daytime tours. Mostly those are Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. And you can hear about the architecture and the legacy of all the astronomers who have been here and the kind of research we're doing now. Also, starting at the end of March, we have the Exploring the Night Sky tour. So on Fridays and Saturdays, you can book a ticket to use the Great Refractor and see some of these planets and the Orion Nebula.
You can actually
and then we
look
have
for yourself through the Great Refractor?
Yeah. So these are
That's
small
great.
groups. We have maybe 12 people who get to come in, and we have a couple guides who talk you through what we're looking at, and then you get to point the telescope with your hands. It's a really fabulous experience.
Oh,
What
awesome
a cool
stuff.
experience. And you know what? You usually see pictures like that when you're a young kid in the textbook. But being able to know that, again, not only can you learn about this event, see this event, you don't have to go there, but you can go there to actually view through their telescope and be able to see space, even if it's not a special event going around. So it's really neat.
Just so many good stories, so much history behind that building in general. So a really good opportunity. And again, the lunar eclipse is Thursday night into early Friday morning. You probably know specifics more than I do.
It's going to be late. I think it starts closer to 10, 11 o'clock time period. And then that's going to go into Friday morning. I think it ends somewhere around like
5?
It ends 5.
I'm talking like the full one.
The full one. Okay, I'm thinking of the maximum. No. We actually are going to be covering this throughout the week, though. So we'll get into the specifics of the longer duration of when it begins to when it ends. But there is going to be a prime zone where you will see the redness of that moon changing as it enters the umbra. And then, again, when it starts to fade and lose its red color. So really cool event. We, again, will be breaking it down for the upcoming days.
Yes, we will. We will have also plenty more coming up when it comes to dust. Holly has a word of the day that might make you chuckle a little bit, but it's the technical term for a dust storm. We'll tell you more coming up. Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're deep into conversation right now. Thanks for staying with us here on Fox Local. We have a new word of the day. Holly has a new word of the day, and it's something that the Southwest deals with, and we were talking about it a lot late last week. So let's hear what today's word of the day is.
Welcome back to Wisconsin Weather Experts Dictionary. Now, the word of the day today is haboob. A haboob is an intense wall of dust produced by downdrafts of thunderstorms. You can even see it in the picture here. It looks more like a sandstorm or even a dust storm. Do you remember the Dust Bowl? Well, yeah, that's an historic example of a haboob. Haboobs are pretty much located, at least in the southwestern portion of the United States. So that includes states like Texas or the Texas Panhandle, Arizona, New Mexico, and even parts of Kansas. It reduces the visibilities whenever it does pretty much go through a particular area. So if you're caught in a haboob, especially driving, you may want to pull over. But overall, a haboob is just an intense wind storm.
The last one was Well, we're talking all about haboobs back here. We're full of meteorologists. A really cool event. Yeah. And again, what we don't necessarily see it here locally, you experienced that when you were out in the Southwest. And I've been seeing it myself when I've been storm chasing in Texas. So had a couple pictures here. Of course, mine was at night, but notice the defined wall of dust.
Yeah.
This was caused.
You can clearly see it.
You really can. And it was caused by the outflow of a thunderstorm. So this air that rushes out of a thunderstorm, it actually picked up all this dry dust and lofted it into the air. Now, I will say the picture on the right there, I'm with a couple other storm chasers. We were wearing sunglasses, which is kind of weird at night, and covering our mouths. It is extremely important to make sure that if you are ever in a haboob or a situation like this is dust that is, again, flying around. So it can be very impactful. It can scratch your eyes. You don't want to get it in your eyes. You don't want to inhale it into your lungs. So we had to take some proper precautionary measures when this was heading our way. And not to mention, you know, Mother Nature is strong.
Yes.
When you're ever maybe at a beach or out and you have one of those grains of sand just hit you and it stings, that's how that felt. It was like a bunch of needles going into your skin. So while it's a cool phenomena to look at, it can be very dangerous, not only to drive in, reducing visibility, but very harmful to your body too.
And that's why they put out dust storm warnings too, because it's impossible to drive in. It's like blizzard-like conditions for those of us here in Wisconsin. So not fun to deal with. Also, unfortunately, kind of common in the Southwest, especially this year, because we are all so dry.
Yeah. So I guess grateful we don't have them here really locally, but another cool educational event that Holly was able to teach us for our word of the day.
And thank you for those pictures too. We love to see young Lisa going storm chasing. All right. Thank you for staying with us here on Wisconsin Weather Experts. Have a lovely Tuesday.